Hey guys, so if you're just joining us, this is a little webinar that we put together to teach you guys about how to hustle your way to your first customers. It's possible that some of you guys already have those first customers, but and some of you guys might not. I don't really know. I don't know all the details about all you guys, but I'm going to teach you what I know about how to hustle your way to get your first few customers. And to start that off, let me talk a little bit about my background, so you know where I'm coming from, where my experience has been, and how I perceive these things. So to start off, I used to be in engineering. I was a mechanical engineer. I used to work at NASA. Worked on the Mars rover mission that landed on Mars in 2012. The mission was called MSL, and that's the goal of the mission was to find life on Mars. Hasn't found life yet, but definitely made some amazing discoveries. After doing that for a little while, I really was drawn to entrepreneurship and the software industry, and I really wanted to start my first company. So I teamed up with a friend of mine, and we started a couple of companies where, because I didn't code, I did the business development, or rather the sales aspect of things, and my co-founder did the coding. Needless to say, we had spectacular failures, and we learned a lot. And in doing so, I've learned a few important lessons. The very the very last startup we started before I was part of the Close.io team was called Fit Squid. And in this startup, my co-founder and I were selling a fitness product, essentially a way to automatically capture every single piece of cardio data from a cardio machine at the gym, and automatically upload it to the cloud and to your smartphone, so you could check into a machine like you check in Foursquare, or on Facebook you check into a location. You check into a cardio machine at the gym, and you get all your metrics around your workouts. You get all your numbers. All of them are saved, and you can also compete with people around you and around the world, just with your smartphone. That was the technology that we had created. And in doing so, we had to go out and get our first few customers. So at first, we started targeting gyms as our customers. We pretty quickly realized that wasn't going to work. So we decided to go after large companies that had a good that invested a lot in employee health. One of the companies that we targeted, among many, many, many companies, was Google, and we were able to close Google as our first paying customer. And that a lot of how we did that inspires this discussion today. So I'm going to tell you that story. So when we first started cold calling businesses, we decided we're just gonna try to reach as many businesses as possible, and try to go after the fitness directors at these companies. So we were calling tech companies anywhere from Apple, Google to Amazon, Microsoft, but all sorts of small companies as well. Um, Pausing here for just a second to make sure everybody can still hear me if there's any messages. Okay, great. We're all good here. So going back to the story, we were cold calling businesses, pitching the directors. For the most part, we didn't get a whole lot of interest. But one day, I decided, all right, I'm going to call somebody at Google. And I was able to find research who the fitness director was at Google via LinkedIn. However, I only got his first name, because in LinkedIn keeps the name private. So what I did is I called Google, and I called their corporate line, and I said, and for the sake of this discussion, I'm not going to use his real name. So I asked for John, and Google said, "Well, John who?" I said, "Well, he's the fitness director." And their response was, "Well, we need their last name to transfer you, so we can't transfer you." So I said, "Okay, no problem." I hung up. I said, "All right." Normally, you'd give up and you move on, but I was determined. I knew Google was a good company to sell this technology to. So I turned around and I went and researched on Facebook, and I was able to make a guess as to who two or three possible last names of people who would be that are also working at Google, that were also in the fitness technology. And I was able to find the name of the person, and then I called Google, the main line again. And this time I used the full name. I said, "Hey, can I speak to John Robinson?" Again, not his real name. And they were able to say, "Yes, sure, we'll transfer you. But is he expecting your call?" And my answer to this question was, "Yes, we have a meeting scheduled." I lied, but it didn't matter because they transferred me. And when John answered the phone, he was totally not expecting to hear from me. And I immediately got into pitching them on my product. So much so that John was impressed with what we had to do, and they called us in for a demo, and we were able to demo John on what our product was all about. Eventually, we closed John as our first paying customer, Google as our first paying customer, and we actually took money from them. We were able to use this to actually get into 500 startups and raise money from them as part of fundraising for our business. So that's kind of my background and my story of where I'm coming from. I came from the technology industry, went into software by doing mostly sales and business development. Eventually, after Fit Squid, I joined up with the founders of this company, which is Close.io today, and was able to build out the sales team here and build and do all the sales that we do for Close.io. So that's kind of my background. I want to talk a little bit about the company itself. The company story is also really, really unique. Now, when I left Fit Squid and I joined up with the Close.io team, we were not Close.io back then. We were something else. We were Elastic Sales. And Elastic Sales hadn't been established. It was an idea in the founder's head. So Stelly, who's the CEO, asked me to join up with the team and said, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to pitch sales as a service to all of these startups because we think we could do sales better than a lot of technical founders can. And so we're going to actually sell them a sales team on demand. But guess what? We did not have a sales team on demand. The sales team on demand was Stelly and myself. That's it. The rest of the team were all engineers. So we said, all right, it doesn't matter. We're going to pitch it anyway. So what we did is we pulled a list of companies from Crunchbase with their phone numbers, and we began calling. And every day we'd keep a goal for each one of us to make at least 100 calls to try to reach as many people as possible, to try to qualify as many people as possible, and try to close our first deal. And we would call people, we'd say, hey, we are offering a sales team on demand. Our customers are startups and technology companies. We have a lot of experience selling technology. Much of these things were not really completely true. We had some experience with technology, but we had no sales team on demand. There were only 2 people, but we sold it anyway. And after 3 weeks of cold calling businesses, we were able to close our first paying customer. And the rest is history. Which actually, incidentally, the history of Elastic Sales didn't last very long, but it played a major role into building Close.io, which is one of the premier inside sales tools on the market today. So when we finally closed our first customer, we started ourselves selling for that customer. So when I closed my customer, I actually became his on-demand sales team, and I was the only one selling. But we didn't really fully disclose this to the customers, but we were able to deliver high-level performance so they never ask any questions. Eventually, we started hiring and growing the team, and we started building out internally a technology to actually improve our own sales so we could close more deals and make more commissions. This is how Close.io was born. If you guys have looked into Close.io at all, this is our website, close.io. It's an inside sales tool that actually makes calls, automatically logs calls and automatically logs emails in the platform so that you can actually spend more time doing sales and less time doing data entry, which is the case with other CRMs. So we actually built Close.io for our own team internally so that we can sell better, and we were actually able to do it. At one time, by a certain point, one of our salespeople was able to do 300-400 calls a day. And we're able to really increase our contact rate or reach rates of businesses and close much higher volume of deals. We took the learnings of sales that we had and actually applied it to the technology, and our engineers were building the things that the salespeople thought were more important. And so the feedback loop between sales and engineering was so much tighter. The product team and the customer, who was the internal sales team, was so much tighter that our engineers were able to build a significantly more superior product. Eventually, some of our customers started asking a question, well, how does your sales team close way more deals than our sales team? Because they had internal salespeople as well. How does one of your sales guys do 3 times as many calls and 3 times as many deals as our guys? So we showed them the secret sauce of ours, the software that we had built. And suddenly we realized, wait a second, we have a product on our hands. People actually want to buy this thing because our customers started demanding that they want to pay for this. So we decided we made a bet. We launched Close.io as a product, and it completely took off. Eventually, we realized that Close.io's growth was so strong that we had to pare down Elastic Sales and completely focus on Close.io, which we did. And more than a year ago, we made a full switch to Close.io, and ever since then, we've been growing like crazy. So that's kind of a very brief history of the company, how we started. I'll get into some of the more specifics as I cover some of the. I wanted to give you the backstory now, but I want to give it some of the specifics as I cover some of the points. So I'll pause right here. If there's any questions about the company, please post them in chat, and I'll come back and actually answer them. All right. So 5 steps to closing your first customer. My assumption is that when you're going to do this, you have some semblance of a product, you know your target market, and you're ready to hustle. I mean, these are prerequisites to anything. This is not about how to determine if there's a product that has a product market fit. This is not about that. This is about you think you have something, you think you can sell it. It's how do you acquire those first 2 customers, which can be a real challenge. So that's the assumptions I'm making as I start with that. So step one, work backwards. What do I mean by that? Well, a lot of times people think they're only too focused on their goal. So their goal is we have to get 5 or 10 customers. Okay, how do we get our 5 to 10 customers? We just need to start, talking to people we know, maybe sell a few people, and that's it. It never takes on any better shape than that. Here's how we did it for Elastic Sales, and here's how I did it for Fit Squid. We said, all right, we need to close 2 customers, one for Stelly, one for me, so that we could start selling. The goal was to prove that we can actually do this successfully and people will pay us and we can actually make money from it. So what we did is we said, all right, in order to close 2 customers, how many people do we need to qualify? What does qualify mean? Well, how many people are going to actually be interested or express interest to us? Well, we assume if we close a bare minimum of if we have a bare minimum of a 20% close rate, we would have to have 10 qualified leads in order to have 2 closed deals. In other words, we have 10 customers or prospects who say, yes, we're interested, we want to move forward. And out of this, we close 2 of them. In sales, there's always a conversion. There's always a drop off. So we looked at the fundamentals. All right, if the goal is 2, that means we need to create 10 qualified leads. All right, so in order to create 10 qualified leads, how many people do we need to reach? How many people do we need to pitch? Reach or pitch, meaning people we get to actually pitch the software or the idea or the product or the service to. So in order to do that, we decided that to pitch 10, to qualify 10 prospects, we needed to reach or pitch at least 10 times as many. And so the number we came up with was 100. So we assumed that there would be a 10% conversion rate from reached to qualified or pitched to qualified. So in order to reach 100 people, we decided we needed to have, assuming again a very low reach rate, we need to have make 1,000 attempts. So again, we 10x that amount. So you notice how we're working on this. Instead of saying, okay, we need to, it's all just a numbers game. It's all about conversion. So closed deals, to get 2 closed deals, we need 5 times the amount of qualified leads. So that's from 2 to 10, so 10 qualified leads. And to get 10 qualified leads, we need to reach 100 people. We need to have 100 conversations. To reach 100 people, because you call or you pitch them, it takes, the conversion tends to be really low. We contacted 1,000 people. So we set about to make 1,000 calls. In reality, we ended up cold calling over 2,000 or 3,000 companies in order to get those 10 qualified leads. That was actually an error on our part. We assumed the conversion was going to be much higher, but we made an assumption, and that's how you should plan. You should work backwards from your goals. Assume always a really low conversion and get to a number that's a really high action number. So the contacted number was the action number, meaning we're going to make 1,000 cold calls in order to get 2 paid customers. And so that's how, now you might say, well, that doesn't scale because we're a startup. We have to do all of these things. We're founders. We have to run other parts of our business. And I hear this all the time. And this is a mistake people make. Think about it. If today you had 10, 15, or even a handful of more customers than you had right now, is that not worth investing in way more than the other things that you do? Other things are also important, but it's a startup. You have limited resources. You have a million things to do. You have to prioritize. And if you prioritize selling first, that's a much bigger impact on your business than the other things you might prioritize. So as founders, I actually really urge you to actually do the things that don't scale. Long term, you're not going to be making 1,000 cold calls a month or a week. Long term, you're going to be trying to you're going to be building the other parts of your business. You're going to be diversifying the actions that you do. But in the very beginning, it's really important. It's really critical that you do the thing that doesn't scale, but it makes the biggest impact on your world today, which is getting your first few customers. So do it the backwards method, work backwards, and that's step two. It's quantity. It's about quantity. Don't worry about the two customers. Once you've worked up that, all right, to get two customers, we're going to make an assumption that here are all the numbers we need to hit. The topmost number of the funnel, which is 1,000 calls in my example, then that is your answer. Then it just becomes a numbers game. Then your goal every day is to hit that number. So we started off with having a goal of every day we had to do 100 cold calls each. Before that point, the most cold calls ever done was 30 or 40. And I was scared. I was like, how am I going to do 100 cold calls? But when you set a goal, when you put your mind to it, Stelly and I were both able to hit 100, 120 within our first week. And then we doubled our goals. We made the goals into 2x. We said now we're going to make 200 cold calls because we really wanted to hit our numbers and get our first customers. Then that's a really old school method. A lot of times in today's startups, a lot of founders feel like, well, maybe we should send a lot of emails out, or we should network or look at people that we know. Great. You can always find people you know who will pay you, but that's not about this. You want to build a business that can actually scale, not the people who you know. Friends and family paying for this is not actually predicting the success of your business. But if you can get strangers, complete strangers, to pay for your business, and enough of them, that means you have a business. You have something that can actually sell. So to do that, focus on the numbers. Do the old school unscalable things. Just do the volume. Cold calling is one of the most powerful tools and most underutilized tools by founders. People think that they don't have enough time, or they think that it's uncomfortable. Don't worry about that. Just worry about hitting your numbers. Can I make 100 cold calls today? I don't care if every person's on the phone said no. It doesn't matter. Make 100 check boxes and check every box off after every call. That's how I did it. I had 100 check boxes, and if I checked my boxes at the end of the day, I had a good result. I could feel good about myself. Even if 100 times people said no, it doesn't matter. If I assume I'm going to reach 20% or 10% of the people, I just want 10 no's. Then that's my goal. My goal is to get 10 no's. If I get 10 no's, I might get one yes. And that's why you focus on the numbers rather than the results. The results are irrelevant, especially when you've already worked up the proper conversion rates. And you'd really need to thrive on the rejection. The rejection means that you're making progress towards your answer. So pick up the phone. In other words, the whole point of all this is, in other words, pick up the phone and call your customers. Pitch as many people as possible. You can close deals, and when you close deals, you're gonna prove out your business. You're gonna get your first few customers. So old school methods, don't ignore them. At least in the beginning, they can actually value. We don't do any more cold calling anymore. So it's no longer part of our business. For Close.io, we're all inbound, and so we're always having warm conversations. But if I were launching Close.io today, I would do the same exact thing. I would be cold calling out there because people don't know who you are. Content marketing, outbound, inbound sales, all that stuff can happen later. But the thing that can actually help you get a foothold is outbound. So don't hesitate to do that. So focus on quantity. That's the main lesson here. Number 3, create a process. So excuse me. So creating a process for outbound is really, really powerful. So one part of it is, all right, you've decided you're going to make 100 cold calls or 200 cold calls a day, or you're going to send out 5,000 emails and try to get 10% response rate. Out of the 10% response rate, you're going to call 5% of the people, and out of that you're going to convert 2 customers. Whatever the number is, however you've decided to do it, create a process. If you're going cold calls, create a script. I can't tell you how many times people are just not taking the time to write it down. Honestly, write it down, because you can write down the perfect script and write the perfect sales pitch. And if you repeat it over and over again, you don't have to think. Even if the person on the other line is an asshole, it doesn't matter, because if you do your pitch perfectly and you got it written down in front of you, you can repeat it consistently and actually do well. So write your pitch down, write your script down. You know what else you should write? Objections. What are the objections you can imagine people having? It's best to prepare these up front because what we used to do is we had a sales script and a set of qualifying questions, questions that we would ask to understand the customer better and try to figure out how we can move the sale forward. And the last part is we had an objection management document where we had all the possible objections that we could hear and answers, good answers to those objections, sales answers. For example, a really good objection question is like, oh, yeah, that sounds interesting. Yeah, send me an email. Send me an email. I'll think about it. And what that usually is person blowing you off. And how you can handle that makes all the difference in the world. Most people, if you're cold calling someone and says, yeah, send me more information via email, you're going to send them an email. You're going to hang up. And then you're never going to hear from them again. But a good salesperson, when he gets an objection, he says, sure, I'll send you an email. What's your email address? He takes it down. He lets the other person lets their guard down because they think you're going to hang up. And then you say, cool, just so I send you something more relevant and not waste your time. How exactly are you guys doing A, B, and C? Are you guys having any challenges in that? What is it that are your main challenges? And you just get into asking questions. You just don't worry about it, and that's how you manage objections. Objections are so write them down, get a document together, and make sure your goal is to try to talk to as many people, have as many conversations as possible, and get those objections out of the way. Write them. You're going to do way better. And iterate on these processes, these email templates, A/B test them. I mean, these are obvious things. You guys can figure it out. But A/B test them, do the objection management, the phones and the phone script. These are really important. Now we have a lot of materials on our blog. If you go to blog.close.io, a lot of materials on how to create amazing sales scripts, how to create amazing email templates, how to do objection management. So if you want to learn about that, you actually can learn. We actually even have a sales book. I actually forgot to mention that in this presentation, but I'll open up the webpage later. And I have a discount coupon if you guys want to ever buy one of our sales books. Just let me know, and I'm happy to take care of that for you guys. All right, so step 4, sound bigger than you are. So oftentimes when you're pitching people in the early days, their biggest concern is that you're just some joker out of nowhere that's going to get them in trouble with their boss, or the product isn't going to deliver what they expect to deliver. So it sometimes helps to just sound bigger than you are. We were a 2-person team, sales team, offering a sales as a service model with dozens of salespeople on demand. What we were selling the dream to people was, if you wanted tomorrow, you could scale it up to 100 people, and we can get that. And that really inspired people to want to work with us. We couldn't deliver it, but we didn't need to deliver it. But we needed to be able to sound that way for people to. I mean, you could say, hey, this is lying. I don't want to do that. It's up to you. Different people have different comfort zones here. A little bit of leaning on the truth, a little bit of exaggeration can actually help. A great story comes to mind. You guys all know Palantir, right? So maybe this story is true, maybe the story is false, but from what I've heard from the insider people, this may really be true. But Palantir is this really fast growing startup. They have now millions of dollars in revenue. They make government spy software, basically. And when they were first starting out, they actually built their first version of the software, and they were pitching the CIA and the FBI on it. And again, not every part of my story is going to be 100% accurate because this is secondhand information. But here, this part of the story I believe is true. And one of the days they were pitching this to the FBI and the CIA, they got a call saying, hey, the director of so-and-so branch is going to come to Palo Alto to meet you guys tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. So be ready. And the founder of Palantir looked around, and they were working out of an apartment. They had pizza boxes and beer bottles everywhere. It was a complete mess, and there was no way they were going to be able to you have someone from from FBI or CIA come to their office. So what they did is they had some connections. They were able to get an empty warehouse close by. They went to IKEA, bought a ton of furniture, bought a bunch of new iMacs. And they spent all night long assembling new furniture, putting up whiteboards, setting up the empty warehouse space as if it's an office space. Wrote a bunch of random things on the whiteboards. And in the morning, the founders met with the director of the CIA or FBI, whatever it was, at the office. And when the directors asked, "Wait a second, where are all the engineers? Why aren't they here?" Their answer was, Well, this is the startup industry. There, this is Palo Alto. People don't show up here till 11 o'clock. And the reality was that wasn't even their office, but they actually pretended to be way bigger. They relied on that in order to actually get their business. They didn't have any negative or false intentions, but it was about creating the establishing trust and establishing that you are a safe bet. So it's always important. Sometimes you can't do that. You can't avoid that. So it's good to minimize the risk by understanding what it is that they need and actually diving into it. I'm happy to talk about this a little bit more detail at a later time or at the end of the session. So the last part is sell it before you have it. So here's the great thing about getting your first customers. You don't have to have a finished product to actually get them to pay. People often worry about that, that they can't get somebody to pay because they're too embarrassed of the products being terrible. When we're doing Fit Squid, when we pitched Google, Google asked us to come and do a demo. And we came and we had a prototype version of the product, and we came in and we showed them a demo. But our product was a wired product. We had to plug in a bunch of wires and run a bunch of cables in order to make it work. So when Google eventually tested it out, it worked well. They were pretty happy. They said, "Okay, this is great, but we're going to need a wireless version of this product." So you guys have that, right? And my co-founder and I both looked at each other, and then we nodded. Yeah, absolutely, we have that. So he said, "Okay, great. Can you show us a demonstration of that?" We said, "Yeah, we don't have it with us right now, but how about in a few days?" So we put a date on the calendar a week later, and we went home and we invented it. We did not have a wireless version. We did not have a way to do it before. We never even thought of it before. But this is what Google needed, and this is what we needed to close the deal. So we just said yes, and we went and built it. We came in with another prototype that was wireless, and we actually were able to successfully demonstrate it, even though it was more or less completely broken. And Google then paid us our first payment of $5,000 to make an installation on their entire fitness complex. And we were able to close our first deal before even having a properly finished product. So the answer is simple. Sometimes it's okay to sell the promise as long as you intend to deliver honestly. And we did. In the end, we delivered exactly what we promised. We worked really, really hard to do it, but we did it. And it's okay to charge money up front, and it's okay to deliver really money. And it's okay to ask for money for your product because there's real value in it, even if you're embarrassed about it. So that's it, folks. That's the session. I'm happy to answer any questions. Let me know if this made any sense, if this was helpful, useful, or any other feedback that you have for me. You guys are still muted, so please post your questions in chat. Thanks, Adam. Oh, just so you know, I'll show you Startup Sales Guide. This is our book, sales book. If you guys want to learn more about sales, you can also go to our blog, sign up for that. We have free sales courses. Our mission is to teach people about sales, help them get really, really amazing at it. So here's the ultimate guide to startup sales. We have an outbound guide. We also now are about to launch the inbound guide, and then a joint guide. But if you want to buy this book, you could buy it. The discount code to get it at half price is awesome sauce, all one word. So feel free to use that code to get half price on this book. That's a CEO Stelly who wrote it. It's a lot of great nuggets in there, including how to do your outbound sales. So Hugh, good question. I'm assuming everyone can see his question. But when we made calls to qualify our leads, we were doing everything on the phone. And honestly, don't be hesitant to close deals over the phone. You can actually do it. I've closed anywhere from $100 a month deals to hundreds of thousands of dollars in deals, in annual deals over the phone. It just takes a few more steps, but you could totally do it. So we were doing everything for phone sales, and we were able to do that. By the way, if you want to also learn about the other more expanded version of the Elastic Sales story. If you go to elasticsales.com, that was the sales as a service business. This is the background story about us. So feel free to take a look at that if you would like to learn more. Also, like if you guys have specific questions about sales, like what's a really good way to craft a sales pitch, feel free to ask questions like that. I'm happy to help with that. Did we generate our list of thousands of companies purely from Crunchbase, or were there other sources? Good question. So we started out with a Crunchbase list because it had information about, because we decided very simply we're going after startups and tech companies that are growing. So we wanted companies that have raised some amount of money because they're going to be able to pay us to do it. But also at the same time, we knew that they had the sales need and had a rough product market fit. So we scraped a list from Crunchbase. Then we pulled lists from data.com. Then we pulled, the YC list. That was actually a big part of it. In fact, our second customer was a YC company. We were also YC at the time, but we did not use our network to get that. We just pulled a list of YC companies, tried to find their phone numbers and email addresses, and we mostly cold called them. In fact, to close our first YC company took 42 calls and 38 emails back and forth to make this happen. So YC lists, 500 startup list. We looked at Techstars list. At the time, there weren't as many accelerators. This was in 2011, but they were starting to pop up. But those are the main ones at the time. So that's where we started. We just went after these companies, and a lot of times people hung up on the phone, told us to F off. It didn't matter, because as long as I could hit my 100 calls a day, I knew that I was going to hit my goal, which I did. Because you talk to enough people, you're going to find somebody who is in the right time. Outbound is all about volume. And it's such a beautiful thing. It's such a simple thing. It's just math. It's just it's just a numbers game. If you knew you're going to convert 0.5% of everybody you talk to into a customer, then you need to make 200 calls. You need to talk to 200 people. And it's the fastest way you could do it, the more you're going to get value out of it. Any other questions? How long do you fake it till you make it? Well, Daniel, the answer is in that question. You fake it till you make it. Essentially, you it's just gonna slowly get there. You pretend sometimes, and again, this is some people may feel like, my morality doesn't let me do that. I don't think this is it's right. It's really up to you. It doesn't matter if your overall intention is you're honest and you intend to deliver on your promises. Then that's what matters. You can lean on the truth sometimes, but we started off with two people off delivering this outbound sales as a service team, and we hired our third person 2 months later. And then we started really hiring as we started to get more and more customers. And at one point, we had gotten up to 100 customers, and we still had a relatively small sales team. We had around, I think, 20-ish salespeople. We were able to handle tons of campaigns. And at that point, we knew we had made it because we were profitable, and we knew that this was a real business. You just know. It's not something that you have to. That's not an answer that you can like see clearly. You just go and you start to see results, and you just keep going, and eventually you're there. With Close.io, it was very simple. We started off, we launched the product, and the first month we had, a couple $1,000s in recurring revenue. It was like, that's kind of interesting. People actually want to pay for this product. Well, that's good. And then the next month, more people paid us, and our MRR, monthly recurring revenue, started to increase. And then again, the next month, even more people. And then we said, wait a second, this is a business, it's actually growing. And as we started to hit, the different revenue milestones and got bigger and bigger, then we passed profitability. Then we knew we had arrived at least to a significant business. And then after we double from that size, then we knew that this is a business can really scale. So it's a gradual process. It's not a simple one. Hugh asks, how do you iterate objection messaging? Was it a case of writing down your most frequent objections and then crafting the optimal responses? Exactly. So the way that worked is we because we had some experience in sales, we wrote down some typical objections. You spent some time thinking about this, and then we crafted answers that essentially allowed us to take power in that, take charge of that conversation. So if someone says, you know what, I'm not interested right now. So my response is, a typical salesperson or a person who's not experienced, their response would be like, oh, okay, sorry to bother you. They get defensive or they start to shrink back. My response would be, cool, I get it. Why? Why do you think you're not interested in that? Well, because so and so and so and so. Oh, all right. How would you ideally like it to work? How would it work for you if it was the best possible case? Well, it would work like this. Okay. And if I said we could actually deliver something better than that, would you be open to having this discussion? Or are you still convinced that this doesn't work for you? Then that changes the dynamic. So yes, you write down some questions, you iterate, you keep improving them, and you keep improving some answers. In fact, if you guys ever want to email me, kevin@close.io is actually my contact information. Some of your objections and some answers that you think, I'll be able to give you suggestions on how to improve them. So feel free to do that. Oh, beautiful question. Jeremy asks, can you tell us more about qualifying questions? Qualifying questions are great. So here's how you do it. When you construct a pitch, you want to start out with an initial pitch. And the pitches should be designed to engage with questions. Questions are critical, and those are the qualifying questions. What you're trying to do is figure out, A, is this person a good fit? Not if this person is interested. Don't ever go with that mentality, because guess what? Nobody's interested because nobody was expecting your call. If they were interested, they'd be checking you out, but they're not. So they're not interested. You are supposed to make them interested, but that comes later. First, you're supposed to understand them. So you ask some, you have an initial pitch and you follow it up immediately with question. And the question should be about understanding the process. Here's our pitch for Elastic Sales. Hey, John, I'm calling some. I'm calling some local startups in the area because we're about to launch our beta program, or to explore if there's any interest in our beta program. I wanted to see if you would be interested in talking about that. And so the initial pitch was designed to get them curious about what we're asking. So they're asking, what is this beta program? What are you guys doing? Well, what we do is we offer a sales as a service for tech startups to help scale their sales team and increase their sales. I don't remember 100% of the pitch. Clearly, it's been many years now, but this is the rough gist of it. And then I would not stop there. I would ask, by the way, do you guys have a sales team? Oh, what is your sales process? How do you guys do sales? Do you make calls, or do you set emails? How many calls per day do you make? Great. If we could actually, if a group of people who could actually sell your product effectively and just send you deals, would you be interested in that? Is that something that actually sounds good to you? And so first, understanding if they're a right fit, that's part of the qualifying question. So understanding, are they even in the right business? Are they actually something of a fit for what you do? Could you actually benefit them? By the way, you should never sell something to somebody who you cannot benefit. I mean, I'm sure you know this, but really, they're just going to make a terrible customer. It's going to come back to bite you. So it's not worth it. So just don't do it. Pitch it. Just understand if they're a right fit, and then figure out if you could deliver what they really need, and then show them how you deliver them, and that's it. That's a sale is done. So there's a lot of options right now for outsourcing outbound effort. Would you still recommend doing it all yourself? I would think outsourcing outbound would reduce conversion, but do you think that the increased volume could offset that? Jonathan, if there's one point here is don't outsource outbound. Just don't, not right now, not till you're really big. Look, let me ask you this, Jonathan, are you generating 10-15 million dollars in revenue per year? If you are, obviously then you're in the wrong room, but I'm assuming you're not. And if you're not, you should not be outsourcing outbound. And that's because And here's something that we learned from practice. We were the ones who were doing this for other companies. And for the smaller companies, we realized they're nowhere near the point where they can actually build a sustainable outbound process, let alone have room to be able to pay another organization. Yes, they could do it, but it's still better if in the initial days or the founder does it, and soon after an internal sales team does it. Outbound, outsourcing outbound till you decide till outsource outbound when you have the following: when you have a repeatable sales process that you can repeat by you have a full, all the sets of processes, you have all the scripts, you have all the conversion numbers, you know exactly how you convert every lead, where the leads come from. Then you can outsource it, because then you know how to control it and how to measure it. Don't outsource the outbound sales campaign unless you know how to measure it. So do that internally, grow your internal team, and then do outbound. Does that make sense? My pleasure. Any other questions?